Hi, my name's Paul Grogan, and in this gaming rules video, I'm going to be teaching you how to play Blight Chronicles Agent Decker, a game designed by Manuel Correa and Matt Dembeck and published by Board&Dice. Blight Chronicles sees you take on the role of a top-secret government agent, specialising in infiltration. A full game of Blight Chronicles represents a single mission, but it's divided into 7 stages, each of which has its own specific objective. Each stage is its own individual game, and after you complete a stage, you will be given a choice on how to proceed. In other words, the overall mission is actually a branching storyline that depends on the choices that you make. So, it's time to show the Blight Agency that you're worth it. Your mission awaits. The first thing to do is to decide which mission you're going to play. For this video, I'm going to be using the Cloudless Sky mission. So, I place the mission card here and put the mission marker on stage 1. And before I go any further, I need to say that this video has been created with a prototype copy of the game, so everything you see here is not the final components. Take the stage 1 card for the mission and place it here. And now you need to set your starting suspicion and visibility levels. Suspicion always starts at 0 at the start of a mission, and I'm going to say this now because it's really important, but your suspicion does not reset to 0 in between the stages. Visibility starts according to what's printed on the stage card, and in this case it's 1. The accomplishment tokens, blight tokens, and the threat token are all placed to one side. We'll need those later. And now we need to create the obstacle deck. The icons in the top left of the stage card show which obstacles are used in this stage, so take all of those and put the rest back in the box. The stage card might also list some special setup rules. If there is something with the title before, do it now. In this case, I find the guardhouse and place it on the first mark space. Note that the actual name of a card is printed here and not at the top. The rest of the obstacle cards are shuffled and placed face down here. For your own agent deck, every mission starts with you having the 8 starting cards. These are shuffled, placed face down here, and then you draw a number of cards from your deck into your hand according to your hand size, which is printed on the mission card, in this case 4. Then you determine what the initial obstacles are that you can see. Deal cards from the top of the obstacle deck one by one into the slots, starting with slot 1. So let's do that now. We first have a drone with camera. This card has a reveal ability on it, so that happens now. It checks if there is a surveillance camera in sight, which there is not at this point, so nothing happens. In sight means in any of the 6 slots and on any of the marked spaces. Next is a security guard, and then a surveillance camera, and this also has a reveal ability, which is looking for another surveillance camera, so again we are okay as there isn't one. Then we have the surveillance operator, I'll mention his ability later. Slot 5 is a car thief, and in slot 6 we have another surveillance camera, and this time the reveal ability does trigger, because we do have another surveillance camera in sight, so our visibility increases to 2. Now, before we proceed, notice that the surveillance operator has a threat ability. Threat abilities are active when they are face up and the card is in sight, and they don't just affect the card itself, they actually affect the rest of the game, so you need to be aware when there is a threat card in play. To help you remember this, if there is an active threat, place the threat token on top of the obstacle deck. In this case, any time you would avoid a card with the security camera icon on it, your visibility increases by 1. Next, if the special setup had any rules with the title after, I would do them now. This stage does not. And finally, the mission book. You should read the mission prologue to give you details of the mission that you're about to do, and also the introduction to the particular stage that you're about to play, as this will give you relevant story details about what it is that you're actually trying to do. To complete this particular stage, look at the stage card. In this case, we need to get an accomplishment token somehow, and then discard 6 combined power of cards to jump over the fence. How you get accomplishment tokens depends on the current stage. But if we look closely at the guardhouse, you'll see that if we eliminate this card, we get an accomplishment token. So that's what we need to do. Eliminate the guardhouse, and then discard 6 power worth of cards to jump over the fence. And we win. Well, this stage anyway. But there's also a way in which you can fail. If we look at the stage card, it tells us that if our suspicion ever reaches 15, we lose. So try not to let that happen. A game is played over a series of rounds, and each round consists of 5 phases which are carried out in order. In the Engage phase, you play cards from your hand, resolve their effects, and then use their power. In the Reorganize phase, you'll draw cards back up to your hand size. In the Avoid phase, you avoid one of the obstacles in either slot 1 or 2. And in the Move phase, all the obstacles get closer. And finally, in the Look Around phase, you reveal new obstacles to fill the gaps. And this sequence repeats until you succeed in the mission or fail. So first, the Engage phase. This is the most important part of the round and where you will make most of the important decisions. You play any number of cards from your hand into the play area on the main board. When you play a card, you may resolve any ability printed on it at the top of the card immediately. Generally speaking, you're trying to play cards to get rid of some of the obstacles that are in play, either by knocking them out or eliminating them. When you eliminate them, that card becomes part of your deck, making your deck better, and you will need to do this in order to complete the stage. For example, let's look again at the guard house, which we know we need to eliminate to complete this stage. To eliminate this card, we need to have 8 combined power, which is a combination of both physical power, the red triangles, and evasion, the blue hexes. If we look at the cards currently in hand, I only have 5 power at most this round, so the only way we're ever going to get to 8 is by adding better cards to the deck. Anyway, let's look at our cards and see what we can do. I decided to first play Silent Movement. I don't have Tension card in hand, but my suspicion is 0 anyway, so there's no need to reduce it. Then I play Elbow Strike, and followed by Punch. And let's say I keep the other Punch in my hand for the next round. After you've finished playing cards and resolving their effects, you then use the total power on those cards to target one of the obstacles in play. The cost to target a card is printed in the bottom right of it. Some cards require physical power alone, but many require combined power, which can be a mix of the two. Note that the cards in slots 1 and 2 and on the marked spaces are nearby cards. They can be targeted normally. The cards on slots 3 to 6, however, are at a distance, and to target them, you must first pay either 1 or 2 evasion, as shown here. This additional cost must be paid for separately from the cost of targeting the card itself. So let's go through the cards and see which ones we can target. I have 4 total power, 3 physical and 1 evasion, but also I have another card in hand which I could have played to give me an additional 1 physical power. So the card in slot 1, the drone with camera, that requires 6 combined power, so we can't target that one. The next one, the security guard in slot 2, that requires 4 combined power, so we could target that one. The next one is the surveillance camera in slot 3. That will cost us 1 evasion first to target that card because it's in slot 3, which we have, and then it will require an additional 4 combined power. Now, we've only got 4 power in total at the moment, but I do have that other card in hand, so yeah, we could target that one as well if I was to play the other card in my hand. The next card, the surveillance operator in slot 4, that's a no-go because it needs 6 combined power and it's also in slot 4, requiring another 1 evasion. And that's the same for the car thief in slot 5. And the card in slot 6, the other surveillance camera, although we have the 4 combined power to target the card itself, we can't pay the 2 extra evasion that's needed to target that card. So our options are the security guard in slot 2 and the surveillance camera in slot 3. And I'm going to choose to target the security guard. The next decision is to whether to knock out the card or eliminate it. But a quick note, you can only eliminate a card if you have played at least 1 physical power. You cannot eliminate a card with evasion power alone, even if the card itself requires combined power. And also note that the cards in the marked spaces can only be eliminated, you cannot knock them out. Knocking out a card is simple, you just flip it face down. It'll become clear later on why this is sometimes a good thing to do. If you eliminate a card, move it to your agent discard pile. It's now part of your deck, and from now on, only the top part of the card is used. The rest of the card is now considered effectively blank. And remember, you'll need to be eliminating cards to make your deck better over the course of the game, because we're going to need 8 combined power to get rid of that guardhouse. For now, let's say I eliminate the security guard, and if you look at the bottom of his card, he has an eliminate ability, and this triggers because we chose to eliminate the card. So my visibility goes up by 1. which makes sense thematically, as I just did something which would have been seen by someone. But the card is now part of my deck. I now have an expandable baton, which gives me 2 physical power when I play it. Nice. Once you have resolved the effect of the card that you targeted, you discard all of the cards that you played that turn into your discard pile, and then proceed to phase 2, reorganise. In this phase, if you have fewer cards in hand than your hand size, then you draw cards from your deck back up to your hand size. In this case, I had 1 card in hand left from last round, so I would draw 3 cards to bring my hand size back to 4. But a quick note, if you have a card in your hand that you don't like, you could actually play it in the previous phase, even if it wasn't going to do anything, just to get rid of it out of your hand. That means you would draw more cards from your deck. Also note that at any time you need to draw a card from your deck and it's empty, this is when you take your discard pile, shuffle it, make a new deck, and then carry on drawing. So, over the course of the game, you're going to be building your own deck of cards, which you'll be cycling through a number of times during the game. But there's a downside, isn't there always? Every time you shuffle your discard pile and make a new deck, your visibility increases by 1. And if your visibility was at 4 and you need to increase it, then it stays at 4 and your suspicion goes up by 1 instead. And remember, for this stage, if you get to 15 suspicion, you immediately lose. So that's it for phase 2. Now it's on to phase 3, the avoid phase. If both slots are empty, you skip this phase, but that doesn't happen very often. Usually there is a card in at least one of the slots, and sometimes there will be a card in both slots. For example, if you decided to target a card in slots 3 to 6 instead of one of these 2 cards. If there is only one card, like in our example here, then that's the card which is avoided. So I'll explain now how that works. The avoided card is placed face down on the avoided obstacles pile, but before placing it there, you must increase your suspicion by the value printed in the bottom right, in this case 2. And remember our threat ability, which is active. When another card with the security camera icon is avoided, we gain 1 visibility. Also, in future stages, some cards will have an oversight ability on them. This also triggers when the card is avoided when it was face up. Now, let's rewind time a bit and see what would have happened if we would have knocked out that guard instead of eliminating it. When you knock out a card, it's flipped face down, so the board would look like this. When there is a card in both slots 1 and 2, only one of them is avoided. If both cards were face up, it's the card in slot 1 which is avoided. You have no choice. However, if one card is face up and the other one is face down, you can choose which one to avoid. And if you avoid a face down card, it doesn't add its suspicion value or trigger any oversight ability. And this is why you sometimes want to knock out a card rather than eliminate it. So in our example, if we had have knocked the guard out, then it would have been the guard which would have been avoided and our suspicion would not have increased. However, we wouldn't have then added that card to our deck, and it means the drone with the camera was avoided, which caused the visibility to increase. So yeah, basically you've got to make difficult decisions each time you target a card. Phase 4 is the move phase, and this is really easy. Every obstacle moves closer to us, refilling any gaps, like so. At the end of the move phase, if any of the cards have a chain ability, that ability is activated now. And finally, phase 5 is my favourite phase of all. It's the look around phase. New obstacle cards are dealt out onto the free slots from right to left. Any cards with reveal abilities trigger when the card is placed in the slot. And if the obstacle deck is ever empty, shuffle the avoided obstacles pile and make a new deck. And in the rare case that the avoided obstacles pile is empty and you need more obstacle cards, then you immediately lose. You succeed in your mission if you complete the objective printed on the stage card before you fail the mission. So for this stage, we need to have an accomplishment token, which means we need to have eliminated the guardhouse, and then we need to discard 6 combined power worth of cards from our hand to jump over the fence and escape. Some stages have events listed on them as a way of gaining accomplishment tokens. For example, to complete this stage, you need to have 2 accomplishment tokens, and a way of getting one of them is printed right here on the stage card. If you complete a stage successfully, flip the card over and read the story. You will then usually have a choice of what to do next, and that choice will determine which stage of the mission you will proceed to. In this case, you could choose stages 2A or 2B. And at this point you can carry on playing, or you could save your game and resume at a later time. The important thing is that you need to note down your suspicion value, because that does not reset between the stages. All cards from your agent deck, along with any obstacle cards you eliminated along the way, are part of your deck. The other obstacles are returned to the box, because the ones for the next stage will likely be different. The mission marker is advanced, and this unlocks something new. In this case, I get to choose a new level 2 card. Cool! So I look at the level 2 cards available to me, which is these 3, and I add one of them to my deck. So let's have Surprise Attack. At the start of the next stage, you can customise your own agent deck. It must contain between 8 and 21 cards, and any cards you remove from your deck are dropped. And dropped means you place them in the box and they are removed for the entire mission. You can't get them back at all for any of the remaining stages of this mission. So you've got to choose carefully. Now also note that a small deck means that you're going to be cycling through it faster and getting to the better cards quicker. But also remember that every time you cycle through your deck, your visibility goes up by 1. So there is that downside. There's a couple of extra rules that I haven't mentioned, and one of them is equipment, which comes in 2 varieties, tools and outfits. When you eliminate a card with a tool icon on it, which is a hand, you may immediately choose to equip that card by placing it face up into one of your tool slots on the bottom of the board. Alternatively, if you have a tool in your hand, you can play it in the engage phase into one of these slots. An equip tool gives you the ability printed on it. For example, if I have the taser equipped, I can discard it from play to give me an additional 1 physical power for that turn. When you eliminate an outfit, you may choose to immediately equip it by placing it face up in the outfit slot at the bottom of the board. And when you equip an outfit, your visibility drops by 2. If you decide not to equip an outfit at the time that you eliminate it, then you must drop it, i.e. remove it from the mission. Now, at the start of a stage, if you have any tools in your deck, you can start with up to 2 of them in play if you want to. And if you have an outfit in your deck at the start of a stage, then you must start with it in play or drop it. Blight Chronicles Agent Decker is a combination of a deck building game along with a story-based set of objectives. Each turn you must make critical decisions over which cards to play and which obstacles to target in order to achieve your success. And each mission is a branching storyline, which means that you can replay it a number of times, choosing a different path each time you play. I hope you found this video useful in learning how to play Blight Chronicles. For more of my videos, please consider subscribing to my channel. And for more information about the game itself, please visit the Kickstarter page, which is linked in the show notes below. Until next time, take care and thanks for watching.